What is going on, everybody? And welcome to the second episode of Big Apple Banter. I'm your host, Chris Sohl, joined alongside just J-man this evening. We are talking New York Rangers puck tonight. And Jesse, it's been quite the season for the Rangers. They start on a high. They start the season 12-4-1, right where they left off the year. Then for about 2 months, they won 4 games in total. And since the new year, they've definitely been playing better. But still kind of shaky. They're on the bubble right now of the playoff picture. And Jesse, with a roller coaster season like this, it's, going through every player on the roster and, kind of validating whether or not they should be on the team. That's the topic of today's episode. Should they stay or should they go? So Jesse and I are going to go through every player, kind of give our opinions. Obviously, a lot of players we're going to agree about, but there are going to be some players who are a bit more controversial and maybe require some arguing. You ready, J-man?
Yeah, I'm all right.
All right, so starting out, pretty simple one. We're going to start with the netminder, the Vezina winning goaltender, Igor Shesterkin. If you don't know, he just signed an 8 by $11.5 million contract extension. Jesse, give me your thoughts on this one. Pretty
Yeah,
no-brainer.
it's pretty no-brainer. He's got to stay. I remember in the playoffs last year, he had the most high danger saves of any of the goalies. He's the one who kept us in a bunch of those games. If it wasn't for him, we definitely lose to Carolina in that series. If it wasn't for him, we probably don't win any of those games against Florida. He's a for sure stay. He's a franchise goalie. Hopefully by the end of his career, we talk about him like we talk about Lundqvist.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue the overpay. The goalie market isn't really in that realm yet. But what this guy does in the playoffs, I mean, he's around a 925 save percentage in the playoffs against the best teams in the world in the NHL. So pretty no doubter for me. You lock him up, and really the Rangers have their backbone goaltender for the better part of a decade. Moving on now, we're going to talk about Adam Fox. Now, Adam Fox currently has no trade protection, but once again, pretty no brainer for me. This is a guy that's won the Norris, is one of the smartest defensemen in the NHL. You know what you're getting in a game in and game out scenario. I don't see any possibility where he leaves next year. His no move clause kicks in, so that makes things even harder. He literally forced his way onto the Rangers. He was drafted by Calgary, traded to Carolina, and basically pulled a I'm not playing anywhere except New York, and he's done everything to prove that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely agree. Think he's gonna stay. I'll say like he hasn't been. I don't think he's been the same since that knee injury last year when Aho kind of like cheap shot at him. He seems like a little bit slower this year. Production is still around the same, around 40 points in 50 games, which is extremely good for a defenseman. I think defense wise, he's been a little bit shaky at times. It might be because he's been paired with Lindgren, who I'm sure we're gonna get to in a bit.
Hmm.
Have some strong opinions about that, but I think Fox definitely, he's definitely our best defenseman, and he has to stay.
Yeah, and for the Four Nations face off, a snub for alternate captain Charlie McAvoy.
Definitely.
Didn't deserve that, but continuing on. Little more controversial one here. Alexi Lafreniere. Now, at the
Yep.
point of he recently signed a 7 by $7.45 million extension. And at the time of that extension, I sat here saying, that's a steal. This guy, we're locked up for 7 years. He's under $8 million. The cap is going up. So I was sitting here saying, wow, this is a great contract, but really just hasn't produced. I don't even think he's at the 30-point mark at this point. I'm seeing
Yeah.
memes all over Twitter that Capo Caco has more points than him this season, and we basically sent him off to Seattle, for Will Borgen, which we'll get into later. But I still don't see a way that he moves unless he's part of a massive deal. There are very few trades I would consider that Lafreniere should be a part of. He's a big piece to our team. He's a young, exciting player. We saw what he did in the playoffs last year. Those highlight reel goals against Florida. I mean, that had me jumping out of my seat. I don't know about you, Jesse, but I think
Yeah.
Laf is here to stay. He's having a down year, a little frustrating, especially since he signed that contract extension. The play has been down, but I still don't see a possibility where he leaves.
I definitely agree. I think that whole line, their plays down, him, Panera, and Tro. I'm looking at his plus minus right now. It's minus 13. Like, I know plus minus isn't like the best way to evaluate players, but I feel like every time like I'm watching him, he's not really playing the best defense. And when he's one on one with players, he does take a lot of penalties. He's 24 penalty minutes. I think he's definitely here to stay. He's a young talent. We don't have that much talent, young wise. We have Cooley, Schneider. But I think he's definitely part of that young core. I think he's a clutch player, like you saw in the playoffs. That could be a big piece moving forward for us.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go into a little bit more uncharted territories here and bring up a controversial name, a beloved member of the New York Rangers, somebody who's been around for more than a decade. all time, probably going to get his jersey up in the rafters.
Yep.
Single-handedly brought the Rangers over the hump in Game 6 against the Carolina Hurricanes, and that is Christopher James Kreider. Now, probably my favorite Ranger of all time, but you look at his stats. I mean, what does he have? 15 goals, 2 assists.
Yeah,
He's
it's not.
battling
Yeah,
back injuries, but at this point, you know, if he can turn it around and get healthy, I think the trade value he brings back is far greater than his actual value as a player currently. He's just not himself. And, obviously moving him at the deadline would be tough because he's such an important piece in this Rangers locker room. I don't think you can really, it's hard to, the Rangers are in a delicate state right now. I
yeah.
really wouldn't want to tamper with anything else. I don't know if you have anything to add, Jesse, but.
Yeah, it's definitely tough because he's a huge locker room presence. I'm definitely biased in all this because Chris Kreider, like you said, is probably my favorite Ranger of all time. Maybe like outside of Lundqvist. I don't want to see him go, but I think it's definitely a possibility if the team wants him. We're paying him 6.5 a year. He's put up 17 points in 42 games. Not so great, considering he's 50 plus goal scorer potential in other seasons. So I do think I think he should go. I think he ends up staying because I don't think any team, wants to take that contract. 6.5 a year is a lot for a player that's not really producing. So I think they're going to try to move him. I don't think they're actually going to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, 6.5. I mean, I think a lot of NHL GMs, quite frankly, are stupid with a lot of the moves they make.
Yep.
A lot of them puzzle me. So
Yeah, the Trooper one made
I,
no sense to me.
I mean, Barclay Goodrow, the Sharks GM took on his over $3.5 million contract for nothing. Don't really understand that, but I think teams see Kreider what he did in the postseason. They know he's kind of banged up right now. $6.5 million for a 50 goal scorer ain't too shabby. So for the sake of the Rangers, I do hope that they're able to move him. So let's get even more controversial here, and let's swing over to the defensive side of the puck and talk about Keandre Miller.
Yeah.
Jesse, I'll let you go first on this one because I think we have a differing opinion on this one. So let's fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Just Miller has these plays that just puzzle me. Like he'll play well. I think it was against this like the start. Like he played like the game against Stars played well the entire game. 2 minutes left. Give away and like owned like our own zone and then led to a goal. We ended up losing that game. He has these plays where he like isn't there for mentally. He has these games where he can take over. He's a very inconsistent player. I think there is definitely value there with him. I think teams, look at Keandre Miller, they see a very good player. I think we could potentially move him. Get some stuff back in return. I think right now we're probably in sell mode. Depending on how the next few weeks go, we might be like in a more neutral or buy mode. But I think if we're going to be in a sell mode, Miller's definitely someone we can move.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and here's where my opinion differs, right? Miller is the type of guy, number one, that I think if he goes to another team, he turns into a perennial all-star type of player. We've seen the physical tools. Obviously, the mistakes have been glaring, but I think the
Yeah,
biggest thing with Keandre Miller is since the arrival of Will Borgen, his play has improved
yeah,
drastically. So we're looking at some advanced stats here. Keandre Miller was in the 40s in terms of percentile for expected goals, meaning when he was on the ice, the opponents were playing better than him. That's essentially what that stat means. Since being paired with Will Borgen, that's risen well above 50%, and they have been one of the best New York Rangers pairing. The second point I want to make, a lot of the Rangers' depth in terms of defenseman prospects are right-hand shot. You got Adam Fox, you got Braden Schneider,
yeah,
Victor Mancini. You have a couple other guys in the AHL. In terms of lefties, Ryan Lindgren is a complete dumpster fire. We're going to get to that.
yeah, yeah,
I don't think that's tough to argue. And it's Keandre Miller. I mean, we got Oro Vakanainen, who has been solid, but isn't anything special. And then, Connor Mackey, like who the hell is that guy? So Miller has been frustrating this year, and he's definitely, this was a guy before the season started. I was saying, is he going to get a $6 to $7 million contract over the next several years or so? But he's definitely played himself out of some money. But if we let him walk, we have no depth as our left defenseman, and him and Borgen have been a
yeah,
solid pair. So, I'm going to disagree with you here. I think they should keep him. I think he's played himself out of a lot of money, but we'll see what happens with Miller. The potential is there, and it's so
yeah.
frustrating. We've seen what this guy does. He's 6'5".
Inconsistent.
If he could just play consistent and have a great game and then not make that game losing mistake, I think we have a completely different result with the player there.
Yeah.
Next up, kind of a no-brainer, I think, for the both of us. Vinny Bumbats, Vinny Trocek. How you doing? This guy, absolutely love him, a stud. Jesse, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be the captain of the Rangers next year or the year after. I think we have to keep him probably just for that reason. He's a very like gritty player. Plays really well in the forecheck, especially for that line with Panarin and Lafreniere. You don't really see much defense besides Trocheck. So I think he's an essential player to keep. He's our best faceoff guy by far. If we don't have him, I don't know who's really taking faceoffs and winning them. He has 32 points in 50 games, pretty solid. We pay him around 4 or 5 million a year. I think it was a steal of a contract. I think he's a great player, and excited for him to be the leader of the Rangers moving forward.
Yeah, definitely kind of just that no BS mentality I like out of him. Really tough player. Kind of, he leads all of the Rangers forwards in ice time. Like you said, great face-off guy, plays the power play, and having him on that face-off, that first power play face-off, and just getting a settled possession, I think has been so important for this team. But he's also just a guy that I like. I like the answers he gives to the media. When Drury had to make those tough decisions to get rid of Jacob Trouba and Barclay Goodrow, I remember he said something like, the GM has a job too, and he could get fired too, so he's playing for his job. And that's just the type of attitude I feel like more Rangers players need to have, like kind of get rid of the BS and kind of understand the situation. Like the team is losing games, changes need to be made. This guy's in it for the long haul. You said it, steal of a contract, 7-year deal, $5.625 million. So this guy's around to stay. Mika Zibanejad has dropped off a cliff, so I think Trocheck has really kind of cemented himself into that number one center role. Two-way guy, love him. Definitely gonna hit the NHL shop as soon as that Vincent Trocheck jersey hits the market. Next up, his line mate, the bread man. 2 more years
Yeah.
left, 11.6 million. The only scenario I see Panarin moving is a Kachuk Huberdeau type of trade. That superstar type of deal where the team is looking for a true shakeup, I think, is a way that Panarin moves. He's making a ton of money, and I could argue, I don't know if you agree, Jesse, but probably the greatest free agent signing in NHL history, just what he's brought to the Rangers. You know, I know you have some problems with in the playoffs if you want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, it just becomes a ghost in the playoffs. I feel like you have these guys, other teams like Sidney Crosby for the Penguins, Ovechkin for the Caps, McDavid for the Oilers. Like if Panarin, like I feel like those guys you can always count on. They're always going to come up for you, like show up for you in the playoffs. Going to score goals, meaningful goals. Like Panarin becomes pretty much a ghost. Like I don't think he had a goal that entire Florida series until the minute left in Game 6.
Yeah.
He needs to figure it out in the playoffs. I'm not sure if it's because he gets out physical in the playoffs or if it's just a mental thing or
Yeah, I mean,
for example,
I'm gonna just. He had 15 points in 16 games in the playoffs. So in the Florida series, his style of kind of lethargic, slowing the game down maybe doesn't apply. But to say he's invisible, he was invisible in the Devils series. He had 2 points
yeah.
in 7 games. He was horrific. I would say last playoff, and even in 21-22, he had 16 and 20.
It's lower than his yeah.
It's lower than, I mean, he's not having a great year this year. I'm somebody who's not a huge Artemi Panarin fan. I mean, fantastic player. I love him. He's by
Yeah, I got
far.
his jersey right.
I just think like I would rather have like I'd rather have like a Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah,
I'd
I
rather
agree.
have Brady Tkachuk. There's a lot of players who I just think their style is what the this guy is an awesome facilitator, but he needs a little more oomph to his game, a little more fire, I think. But the disappearing in the playoffs thing, I don't completely agree with, but he's a stud for us. And like I said, he's a superstar. I don't think he moved unless some crazy shit goes down. Transitioning now, let's see, who have we not touched on? All right, another somewhat controversial, but still I think makes return. Will Cooley. He's on an
Yeah, for
expiring
sure.
contract. He's currently on his rookie deal, making 800 grand a year. He's gonna be an RFA after this year. Beginning of the year, this guy was like Wayne Gretzky. Like, holy shit. Hey, he had like 20 points in 30 games, just playing the third line. That Cooley Heedle Cockle line was dynamite. I believe, led the league in like goal differential. They were outscoring their opponents 13 and nothing. Expected goals over 60%. That line was humming. And then the Rangers decided to stop trying and everything kind of went to shit. But Jesse, you're just looking at the contract, do they sign him long term? What's the money like? What are you seeing here? What do you think's going to happen here?
Yeah, I think two things with Cooley that I've liked. Like you said, he's starting to score more, starting to create more. Beginning of the year, like I guess last few weeks you really haven't seen it. What I like to say I think is his defense really improved. Last year, like if the Rangers, like let's say like a goalie got a penalty, like they put Cooley in the box. They weren't confident in his defensive play. This year, he's one of our penalty killers. So I think he's gained a lot of trust from the coaches, and I think he's played very well defensively. I think long term wise, I think you could see something maybe like Lafreniere, Kako, like when they were restricted free agents, like 2, 3 million maybe for 2 years. I don't think they signed him big. I think we should bring him back because he's young, he's playing the playoffs, and he seems to be meshing well with certain guys in the team. So I think we should bring him back.
Yeah, I kind of like the fact that he can play up and down the lineup now. He is currently playing with the Black Hole, Mika Zibanejad himself. But this is a guy that has played first line. He's played third line. I think similar to Trocheck, just kind of has that no BS attitude and actually plays like he gives a shit, which I appreciate.
Yep.
The offense was, I think, a little streaky, and obviously that line was clicking really well. Stopped clicking. Kako's no longer on the team. So I love Cooley. I actually I think your AAV is kind of right, but I would lean more long term. I'm thinking more like four to
Okay.
five years, 4 to 5 years, three-ish, maybe 4 million. I think this is a guy that because of his versatility, you mentioned now he's on the penalty kill. That's like a huge value for a player is being able to kind of play the penalty kill. He's even got a little bit of power play time. Just kind of a Swiss Army knife who isn't a true bottom sixer. I think because he can play up and down the lineup, that brings him more value. So I'm a big Will Cooley guy. I think he's pretty awesome. Another line mate of Cooley's in the earlier part of the year, the injury prone but ever so talented Philip.
Yeah.
Now, Philip Hedl, I mean, if you're a Rangers fan, this guy outside of Artemi Panarin, might be the most skilled offensive
Yeah.
player the Rangers have on their team. I mean, his breakouts are incredible. He moves down up and down the ice so effortlessly. I mean, you watched the Flyers game, right?
Yeah.
That one chance where he put the guy inside out and then almost scored. Like this guy is through the roof potential, but it feels like if you blow on him the wrong way, he could end up with a concussion. So he does have 2 more years at 4.4 million.
Yeah.
Pretty solid deal for how talented he is, but he just can't stay on the ice. So I don't know what you
Yeah.
think, but
Yeah. I think if you have an opportunity to move him, you do. Phil, like you said, is probably one hit away from his career being over, unfortunately. I really like him as a player. I think he's a great player. But I think it's a very odd situation because I do think for his talent that paying him, what 4.5 a year is a complete steal. But I think for the situation with his injury and that he's one hit away from his career being over, if you have the opportunity to move him for picks or for another younger, prospect who could turn out to be him, maybe in
yeah.
2, 3 years, I think you make the move.
And I just think with a lot of the noise surrounding JT Miller, it feels like at some point this trade's going to happen. I mean, literally the Canucks GM basically came out and said, "Our team is in shambles. We're punting. Here are our players. We'll probably take a discount." And Hedl was like the main piece involved in that JT Miller trade. Now, this could be another episode when that trade probably will happen. That we'll talk about it and kind of break it down. But I definitely, if the Rangers trade for JT Miller, I'd say there's probably a 70 to 80% chance that Philip Hedl is the main piece that's
Yeah.
around. We'll save those thoughts for another time. But moving on now, let's see who else we got here. Screw it. Ryan Lindgren time. I'm going to go first because I think you're going to argue me here. Ryan
Yeah, you
Lindgren's a bad
take
hockey player. He's a terrible player. I love his tenacity. I love his leadership. I love his mentality. But this guy's a black hole. I actually saw a chart on Twitter. It was every Rangers individual defenseman and their expected goals. Adam Fox by himself was in the 60s, 70s. Keandre Miller was high. Even Jacob Trouba was above 50. When they're with Ryan Lindgren, all of those percentages went in half, meaning that Ryan Lindgren dragged all of these defensemen to half of what their capabilities are. That's just how bad this guy is. He's undersized. He's hurt all the time. He plays through injury. Chris Drury said screw it and gave him a 1.5 a 1 year deal of $4.5 million because for some reason Adam Fox just loves playing with this guy. Larry Brooks, one of the team's beat reporters, who probably has the greatest insight into the front office, basically said that Adam Fox doesn't want Lindgren to leave because he loves playing with him. Adam Fox, I don't know what you're doing, bro. I don't know what you're seeing on the ice, but this dude is literally keeping you from a Norris every single year. I think there's a lot of value with Ryan Lindgren, to be honest, with other teams. I think he's a tough guy that kills penalties, can play top pair minutes. He plays with a guy like Adam Fox. So for some reason, Laviolette and Drury keep putting him out on the ice. So he's proving he can do that, but he's bad. But here's where it gets interesting. I think Adam Fox's voice is so critical to this team that because Adam Fox is saying that he wants to play with Lindgren, I don't think he leaves. That's my hot take. I think he stays next year.
Yeah, I don't.
He'll get some bullshit extension. I don't think he leaves.
Yeah, I don't think I think if I think if you have Ryan Lindgren on your roster, I don't think you can win a cup. I think that's how bad of a defenseman he is. I'm not even exaggerating. Like he's super slow. Like you said, he is tough. I respect that. But he gets hurt a lot. He plays through his injuries. He is just he's just god awful. Like it's very frustrating to watch. I think he's at the point where not only should he be demoted to the third line, but it's like debatable, like scratch territory. I think if you put a guy like like Jones in there, I think he's probably better. I think he's like like Ruedel territory. Like I think he's that bad of a hockey player. Like you said, I'm not really sure what's going on with Adam Fox. I don't know why he likes playing with him. Maybe I don't know. I don't know
Like
what that whole
you
thing's
watch
about.
Fox in the ozone.
I can't. Yeah.
And Lindgren gets the puck, and it's just like he's a like truly the definition of a black hole. He just sucks. He sucks everybody down. Like Fox is not a great skater. That's probably his biggest weakness. And Fox would skate circles around this guy. I mean, he's looking to push transition. He's joining the rush, and Ryan Lindgren's in no man's land, making a stupid play. Honestly, like defensively, he's bad, but where he really is just unplayable is his puck moving, his offense. He just provides absolutely nothing. And the Rangers are typically a
Yep.
team that gets offensive contributions from their defensemen, and he has just not been able to do that whatsoever. So, as much as I want to see him gone, I just think that the Rangers value what Adam Fox has to say way too much, and you know, for those reasons, he somehow will stay. Next up on the list, probably are going to be our lengthiest conversation, and that is Mika Zibanejad. So at one point in time, this Swedish center, who is now the Rangers' probably third center, scored over 40 goals in 50 games. Let's put that into perspective. So in a 82 game season, that is near 60 goal territory. This guy currently, let's see what his stats are. I think he's 29 points in 40 something games, whatever it may
Yep.
be.
20. Yeah.
I have never seen a player just look so lost. Like what am I doing? Like even his I'm gonna go back to Trocheck. Like the way Trocheck addresses the media, you can tell that Trocheck's got a pair of balls and is willing to take criticism. He's willing to put his life on the line. Like he's real. When Zibanejad talks to the media, it's like it's just the next game, just focus on the next one. I just see this guy and he's got no swagger. Like this guy used to have more energy, more juice. When he shot the puck, there was some oomph in it. I remember I don't know if you remember Jesse, but the power play, teams would send a scout over to him. He's got 5 more years, $8.5 million. Obviously, the no move clause is huge. The Rangers are going to find a way to get him out. So that's my take. If you're a Rangers fan, you know what I'm talking about. But if you got anything else, Jesse,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how. I have a question for you, Chris. Do you know who has the worst plus minus in hockey right now?
he's bottom of the league.
It's him. He is the worst. He's the worst plus minus in
He's
hockey with
worse. He's
minus 20.
what
Yep,
what is it?
worst in hockey. Minus 25. Worst in hockey. Out of 843 qualifying players.
That's
Um,
dude.
the factor of paying this guy, what do you say, is 8 million? I mean,
$8.5 million. Bull-
I think if we could get a team to even take 5 million and we eat three, I think that's a win. I mean, he's not contributing. He's losing us games, not playing good defense, can't score. I think they said on MSG, I think he was one, and then he was 1 for 11 on breakaways, and I think he missed another. I think he's 1 for 12
Like he
at
just
this
has
point.
no he
He just
has
can't
no
score.
no confidence. Like
No, he's no
sometimes
confidence.
players are in the type of slump where they just need to change. Like genuinely, if he went to like the Canucks, for example, like all those rumors, and he just had to change of scenery and was with a new team and things were different, like I could see him like playing better because this player I used to talk about, is this like a top 20 player in the league? Like, is this guy Braden Point territory? Is that where he's at? I mean, even 2 years ago, he had
Yeah,
91 points. People were arguing whether or not he was better than Artemi Panarin. Like, and Panarin is 2 to 3 tiers above him now. Like Zibanejad has become to the point where he's barely like a serviceable third line center. And I've seen the flashes and I know the potential is there, but just he's been so consistently poor, especially this season. And, last year, I think he got a little bit too much hate. Was still like a solid defensive player. Obviously, Barkov dominated him in the playoffs. Like, that kind of makes sense. Barkov's probably the best two-way player in the league. But the contract is bad. He's not playing well. I just don't see the passion from him anymore. So for those reasons, I truly think the Rangers are going to find a way to get out of Zibanejad. So
yeah, he's toast. He's toast.
quickly together, let's just group Edstrom and Rempe together. Honestly, they have been
I
playing
like it.
really well recently.
Yeah,
Rempe has clearly, since that suspension, worked on his game. Edstrom, I don't know if you know this, Jesse, has the fastest speed bursts in the NHL this year. He's the fastest skater, like his burst of speed.
yeah, I can believe it. Yeah,
They call them, rest in peace, but they call them the Twin Towers on the fourth line. I mean, they're both 6'7" plus. They have expiring deals. I think the Rangers bring them back on a two-way deal. I think they have more value to the Rangers than other teams. If Rempe can continue this, aggressive but calm, cool, and collected play, I think that's great for them. I don't know what you think, but give them a cheap deal and see what happens.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they're both very good players. It seems like in that that stretch they went 7-0-3. It seemed like whenever they needed a goal, like the fourth line got it from them, which is a little weird.
Yeah,
Whether it came from
I remember
Carrick or Enstrom.
That Vegas game. Edstrom had the game winner, that like weird
Yeah,
Brodzinski shot. Edstrom had a goal against Colorado on like a little breakaway. Rempe the other night had a sick pass to Sam Carrick, who we'll talk about next. But this fourth line is looking like a fourth line that can really,
yeah,
really change the tide of a game. Rempe's getting more than 5 minutes of ice time, so I say you give
yeah,
both of those guys, you give them cheap deals and see what happens. There's obviously room for development, but I say you keep them around. And then the center on that line, I would say Sam Carrick is the only player on the Rangers right now who is exceeding expectations.
yeah. I
That's
like them.
that's where I have that's how I'm categorizing him, especially as
Yeah,
of
yeah,
recently.
yeah. I think Carrick's definitely exceeding expectations. He's +4, tough player, scoring goals when they need him to. Yeah, I mean, plays good defense on the penalty kill. Like I have nothing bad to say about Carrick.
Yeah, I mean he's on a 3-year contract. I think a lot of people forget that. The Rangers got him for a 3-year deal in the offseason. I remember the one play where I'm like, holy shit, this Carrick guy's different. Was there was a 2-on-1 in the Vegas game. Fox went down to slide and block the pass. Carrick was gassed, like head down, barely moving, but he just lunged, put his stick out, and like broke up the pass. I'm like, that's my fourth line center, not goddamn Barkley Goodrow making almost $4 million. Carrick's making $1 million.
I like Goodrow though.
I like Goodrow, but whatever.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about Will Borgen. So I guess with Borgen, we could talk about the contract. What do you think about the
Yeah.
contract?
I think it's a steal. I think when you have your goalie, you know, like being outspoken. I've really never seen this with Igor. How he just very like outspoken positively about Borgen, and then you saw him recently or very soon after get signed. I think it's a steal of a deal. It's what, like 4.5 around average,
It's five
5 year.
years by 4.1. So
4.1. Yeah, I think that's an absolute steal for Borgen. I think he's changed the way this team has been playing defense over the last month.
he's changed Keandre Miller's play. Like
He's
that's
yeah,
the
he's
biggest
changed
thing.
Miller's
He
play.
has made Keandre Miller like a good defenseman again, which I
Yeah,
think is huge. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on the steal part. He's only played like I think tw around 20 games. He was a third pairing defenseman for like his entire career, and he hasn't provided a lot of offense. He's played really well with the Rangers. Obviously, that pass against Colorado, just like, oh my God, what are you doing? But he's been solid. I don't know if I can call it. I think it's a little risky. I think it's risky because if he falls back to how he was when he was with Seattle, it's a complete overpay.
Yeah.
But if he keeps up this level of play and the cap keeps going up, I see there's no problem with it. For us, he could be, a good second pairing defenseman. Maybe a little more offense from him, but I think the best thing about him, and Laviolette said it, was he quieted the noise around the Rangers. He quieted the defensive noise. He kind of solidified the back end, and he's a type of player. I call him boring in a good way. Like he's never gonna blow you away, but other than that Colorado pass, he's never gonna make you be like, what the hell are you doing type of
Yeah.
defenseman. He's kind of night in and night out, gonna give you what you expect. So I like him for those reasons. Maybe a little bit of an overpay, but only time will tell about that. Real quick here, let's see.
I mean,
We got Jonathan Quick, last year of his deal. Love Quickie. I don't really see if he gets moved this year, maybe a contending team. In the offseason, though, I don't think we're bringing Quick back, unfortunately. So, your thoughts?
yeah. I think same. I think Jonathan Quick's like he's almost living the dream. Grew up a Ranger fan. Getting to finish out his career there. I think it's something that it's probably very special to him. He's going for his 400th win. Hopefully, we see that in the next few days. And I love Quick. I hope they bring him back. I think he's for a backup goalie. I think he's exceeded expectations. I remember I was texting you, Chris, last year during, and I was like, "Oh my God, Jonathan Quick's terrible. Like, we need a new backup goalie." And then he quickly, shut me up. And he's doing even when Igor got hurt this year, he stepped in and has been
Well,
very
that's
valuable
the
for the team.
benefits of having the best goalie coach to ever do it. I mean, he's kind of stepped down a little bit this year, but Benoit Allaire, we're blessed as Rangers fans to have had the goaltending we've had for the better part of 3 decades, really since Richter. Richter to Hank to Shesterkin, like it's been unreal. Quickie's been great. Has fallen off a little bit in the most recent games, but for some reason the Rangers side, they don't want to play defense in front of him. Yeah. And then before we go, we got just a couple more guys. Zach Jones, we can touch on quickly. Unfortunately, I thought this would be the Zach Jones year, but since Vakanainen has arrived, Jones is he's a good puck moving defenseman, but I think he's just too small. If I had to pick one Ranger who's 100% not on the team, it's Zach Jones. Like this guy deserves to play somewhere. It's just not in New York. Don't know why Lindgren is employed over him, but
Yeah, huh.
Zach Jones is going to be gone, unfortunately. So
Agree. Nothing else to add, really.
yeah, Vaganainen just hasn't been
I
here.
like,
I'm gonna
yeah,
say
yeah.
he's gone. I don't know. He's just
Yeah. He's there.
he's
He's
kind of
there.
gray. He's like irrelevant, kind of. I don't know. I
Yeah,
see. I think the Rangers in the offseason are going to go big for defensemen. So Vakanainen is not part of the long-term plan. You might disagree. I don't think that maybe a cheap deal, but let's just
yeah,
put it this way. If he's on the Rangers roster next year, I'm not going to be mad. I'm just going to be a little disappointed. That's how I'll leave it.
yeah. I agree. I think we're gonna need at the minimum two defensemen.
Yeah. We need
Two
like
like two two top four defensemen.
yeah, like not some Eric Gustafson signing. Like this team needs better defensemen. Like outside of Adam Fox, there isn't a guy on the back end that I say this guy brings it every. Maybe it's Will Borgen. But yeah, and then Jimmy VC. I mean, this guy's he's lost his
Yeah,
spot. I think
he's down.
Edstrom. I actually liked VC, but Edstrom has kind of taken that spot.
Yep.
But next, so that is really, I mean. Arthur Kaliev actually it looks like he's not going to be playing on Saturday. It actually looks like Johnny Brodzinski's going to be in the lineup. So Arthur Kaliev, I can't really say anything about him. They picked him up off waivers. He's kind of whatever. Probably not going to bring him back. I feel like Laviolette has not done a great job kind of evaluating talent recently. I mean, Zibanejad and Lindgren just should not be on the ice, but that's whatever. But that's pretty much every rostered player. And I think you can agree, Jesse, but a lot of these are going to come down to where the Rangers are in the standings. If
Yep.
they're fighting for a playoff spot, they could become buyers. Right now, I kind of agree they should be sellers, but we'll definitely have an episode closer to the deadline making some predictions. But That has been the second episode of Big Apple Banter. Me and J-Man taking this one on by ourselves. Rangers have had a rocky season, so stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of updates coming your way. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good night.